And I'm a little older now, so water kind of sets off different systems in the body. So here I'm going by a creek, and here I'm going by an ocean, and yeah.
Welcome to the Brain Lady Podcast with your host, Karen D. Wood, the resident brainiac. Get ready for a mind-expanding journey as we unravel the mysteries of the brain from Notes from the Couch. Join us as we delve into the complexities and wonders of this enigmatic supercomputer. Fasten your mental seatbelts and prepare to have your synapses fired up. Welcome to the captivating world of the Brain Lady Podcast.
And welcome back to the Brain Lady Podcast. We're recording in the podcast lair. We've got Notes from the Couch today, where we talk about what happened in a session and share it with you on what you can learn about the brain and what you can do with you and your behaviors. And we have our co-host, Jermaine Jackson.
We're back. Karen D. Wood. I'm excited for another episode back here in the lair. We're getting ready to jump in. Wood, what do we have from the couch today?
So we've done several sessions on the frontal lobe and how to access it. So we had a marriage talk, and then one about how to help your kids get to your frontal lobe.
Yeah.
The last one we recorded was on how to blink to find the box or the topic that's upsetting you. Today, our quote is, how do I get back to the fact?
Back to the fact.
How do I get back to the fact?
That's a good one.
And it's the same kid at the creek that we talked about last time.
Okay.
Who was really learning about his brain and where the snags were. And he was trying to understand our concept of acceptance, one of which is stop and look at the facts, which is hard to do. Because up on the screen, we've got a kid brain, and his amygdala in his middle limbic system would often get him really high on that scale of 0 to 10,
right,
or really low on the reverse scale. We'll do another podcast on that. He would actually freeze and shut all the way down.
Wow.
Form of dissociation, right? So then he definitely had no access to his frontal lobe.
Okay.
So last time we talked about how to blink, and this time he was curious about, what does this mean? What do you mean by these facts? How do I get back to the facts? Because he's really a bright kid. So he wants to engage you in an intellectual debate about the situation, right? And so facts are easier for him to find than they are for some people. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is this frontal lobe and how to get back to the frontal lobe. So, because tension is going to stop us. Another thing that's going to stop us from finding those facts is complaint. So in our last session, we talked about you working, and we'll get that up on the screen in a second, where the box exploded on you of all those books.
They're all over the place.
So talk to me about a complaint you were doing in your head, and then how you found the fact of that complaint.
Man, I think it's so easy for us to find the complaint. The box broke. It was hot outside. I was exhausted. I had my son with me, and I just wanted to go home. So all of the complaints just came. I couldn't believe this just happened. And complaining was not going to fix the situation.
But our brain doesn't know that.
Right.
Because complaining is actually the mind. It's actually the memories of what you're used to saying. I've shared and confessed my driving scale of going up quickly from 0 to 10.
Right.
And I actually say out loud to that other driver, what, were you raised in a barn? Like, that complaint is actually going to help. The other person can't hear me, but my mind doesn't know that then. I'm just used to saying that. So grab one of those complaints and share with us how you got back to the fact of acceptance.
The biggest one, it was just hot. It was 105 degrees. That was the biggest complaint. But the fact was the box broke and the books had to be picked up.
Right.
So the fact is, I have to still do the work. And I can sit here and complain in the heat and be here longer, or I can get the work done. It's going to be hot, but it's going to get done, and I can get into the car with the AC and some ice water. So I just had to do it. I just had to get it done.
So the fact is, I have to get this done. And your mind helped you figure that out.
Yeah.
And that's one of the important things for us to realize about acceptance and access to the frontal lobe is it doesn't mean it's good, kind, lovely, or true.
Nope.
It means we got to figure out how to get there. So here we've got the loss of so many things for you, right? Mm-hmm. And then we go through all these phases of acceptance. We're in disbelief it happened.
Yeah.
That was a big one.
Yep.
Then we're in dismissal, like, I'm just going to drive away and let somebody else figure this out.
I did that, yep.
I would have. Then you're getting pissed, fearful, and angry. So this is for our audio listener, this is a cycle on the screen chart.
Which is a great.
And then there's this pervasive sadness and it attaching to all the other depressive things going on in your life. Mm-hmm. And then we go through the scramble of trying to figure out, this is when you got in the car and got the ice water.
Yep.
And then you hit this acceptance commitment.
Yeah.
And then you got to the new way of doing it. So this is this comes from acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT. Yeah. That's where this comes from. So it's a really good cycle chart because our mind, from all the things we've gone through, especially in layers of trauma, is going to be trying to tell us that we're in danger in this situation. And there was a lot of danger there, especially with your kid with you, right? It would have been wholly different if your kid hadn't been there,
right?
As far as the danger you're in. Mm-hmm. So, good. We're trying to figure out how to get back to acceptance. So, let's talk about the brain things that are happening.
Right, yeah.
Because there's a lot of brain parts that working there. So, good. We've got another brain up on the screen, a good chart of showing what each parts of the brain do. We can see that your brain stem was really impacted. Your breathing was off. Your heart rate was off. Temperature's on the screen.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And then we get to this middle brain where we have to figure out what we're doing in this situation.
Yeah.
And the temporal lobe is really doing all the feelings and the reactings, and it's harder to get up to that thinking.
Wow.
But this is a good drawing because it shows that occipital lobe where we can get to the pictures and the viewing of the situation. So it's really the middle of the brain is throwing us off, and the top of the brain is how we get it back in balance.
That's so
again.
good.
And so what we're talking about is how to use different brain parts, the frontal lobe, to tell that inside limbic system with the facts. Now, the kid said to me wisely, so I need to just be logical and never emotional. Remember, he's a kid of intellect. And I said, no. That didn't sound so professional, did it? I think that's actually what I said. Well, a lot of times, I do the buzzer sound.
Yeah.
Wrong thought. Gets people's attention. Mm-hmm. So what we said was we want to be balanced between emotions and logic. I don't want to be married to someone who's all logical.
Right.
And he thought, my precious husband, that I was just emotional. What we're trying to do is say, yes, logic on the screen is primarily a frontal lobe function because we've got to figure things out. And emotional is primary inner brain because it's protecting us and we're reacting.
Yeah.
But what we want to do and use clear thinking to get there is to be balanced between them both. So here's again the different parts of the brain, left versus right. We use both of them. And the left brain tends to be a little bit more illogical. It does. It's where math happens. Math is not an emotional process.
No, not at all.
Well, for me, it is. When I see a whole bunch of X's, Y's, and Z's, I get very emotional. Like, who on earth thought of X, Y, and Z?
Exactly.
In this equation situation.
Exactly.
Squirrel. So cruel. When I became a social worker, I was so excited. My kids are in high school. I'm going to get to do this thing, go to school. And the first thing they said to me was, you got to take a statistics class to get into social work. And I was like, have they not surveyed social workers to figure out how many of us do not like math? There's a reason for social
There's a reason.
Thank you, Squirrel. We're done now, Squirrel.
We're done.
So what we're trying to do is say, let's keep figuring out how to use the different parts of our brain to find the facts. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean it's good or fun or lovely or true. Even though for people of faith, what we're really trying to do is get back to Philippians 6:8, where we can think about whatever is kind, lovely, true, a good report.
That's good.
But when we're frustrated or the box is too big or the box is breaking, it's hard to get that in mind. Yeah. But it's lovely because right before that verse, it talks about anxiety and how to find the peace that passes all understanding.
Wow.
And one of the ways we get there is by using our boxes. So we have the tension box worksheet on the screen. And this just helps us break down the situations. And then it's like we're just taking one situation at a time to be able to say, what are the facts I can find
Yeah.
So here's the box. It's really, really hot. And tension, obviously it's hot. Without acceptance, I'm not going to finish this job.
Right.
With acceptance, you started listing off your facts.
Yeah.
Of how I've got to get this job done. It still needs to be done. It's not going to be any easier if I come back tonight when it's 98 degrees at 9 o'clock at night.
And it was at a school. I couldn't go back
because they're going to lock it.
The gate was going to be locked. So it had just had to get done in that moment. It just had to get done.
And then your mind did the chemical shift to make it be safe.
Yeah.
Because that's what a lot of fact finding is about, is us being safe, which is really important when we come from hard places, that there's no safety. And
so what do you mean? Like we're creating that space in our brain to feel safe in the moment?
We're telling the amygdala it doesn't need to send all the Fs. I've got this.
I'm under control.
Right. So when I have a PTSD response at a stoplight, I'm using my frontal lobes on the screen to tell the inside of my brain I'm okay. And that sends a message to my spinal lobe that I can breathe again, that I can take care of myself again. Because remember this, we got a PTSD thing on the screen. There's so many places that go offline in trauma.
Right.
My frontal lobe goes offline. We don't talk much about the hypothalamus axis, but it's really important for sending chemical messages to my gut that I'm okay. The gut as is involved in the safety as the brain is, right?
Absolutely. I'm learning a lot more about that.
That amygdala sends the wrong messages, and that hippocampus sends all kinds of messages of the danger, right? So when I'm sitting in the spire in our area right now and hearing those planes and sirens and everything else, this is what happens to me. Thank you.
That is what happens.
That was a shot from inside out of all the characters going, Craig.
Yeah.
And so,
Craig? Did you just say Craig?
I did say Craig because I've been hanging around you too much.
Don't blame me for that.
That is our Jermaine Jackson leftover. So on the screen, we've got the impact of trauma, which is a really good, there's all these parts that are impacted. And so what we're actually doing is healing those overreactive parts.
Right.
Because remember from a previous earlier podcast, the amygdala gets swollen and overreactive.
Right.
And the hippocampus actually shrinks and can't contain the new memories. So when we're dealing with people of high trauma and we think, don't you remember we went out a couple of weeks to have such a good time? They literally do not remember.
Wow.
And that's a trick because then when we try to engage them in the facts, their mind's not going to remember the facts.
They don't remember it. Wow.
So that's what you're doing when you do your strong coaching with people who have been in a lot of trouble. Sometimes we have to be the facts for them. The fact is, and then fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Because when we get to that acceptance step, what's the outcome of the picture with acceptance? They literally have no idea.
They don't know.
So we kind of hand it to them in a nice package and say, well, the fact is, at our session last week, we talked about this and you really got it well. I did? Yeah, you really did. Because on the screen, we've got that childhood trauma. It causes early disruption in the safety processing and who I trust.
That's huge.
And it sets you up for a lifetime of not trusting.
Wow. Yeah.
And so it actually changes that brain, the anatomical features, this middle oval here talks about. It actually changes the shape of the brain. And that's why, in fact, I had another client yesterday where I had to convince her she doesn't have bipolar and she doesn't have borderline. That's what she's been diagnosed. Her brain's just having trouble switching from the trauma she's been through. That pumpkin had her mom die early of an overdose. Her dad's rejected her. Now her grandpa's really sick. And so, yeah, she's got some shifting mood.
So help us understand then, like a brain like that. Talk a little bit about the clear thinking method. Why those 4 steps are so important and how those 4 steps can help a precious brain like that.
So we've got on our screen our 4 steps of outcome-based thinking that we use in clear thinking. So to notice the tension. So I help the kid at the creek. What is the tension when your dad's telling you to do another thing? Or this pumpkin who lost so many people.
Right.
When someone says, my mom and I did this, what is the tension she feels that she doesn't have a mom anymore, right?
Yeah, that's right.
See, one's an escalation and one's a shutdown.
Wow.
Either one are tensions, right? So it's still pointing to the screen. Second step, look at yourself and the outcome of the picture. With my reactive guy, he could see himself mouthing off to his dad again. Right. And then mom jumps in, and the little sisters jump in, and that's not a fun party. And this pumpkin on the freezing side can see herself just doing her dissociative shutdown. It's not a bipolar manic shift. I just help her realize the fact is, with acceptance, you've been through a lot. Your brain's just protecting you. The fact is you're shutting down because your brain is protecting you.
Right.
And to the pissed off kid who's wanting to run out of the house, the fact is you have a lot going on. Yeah. And so if we can help them realize, wait, let's talk to your brain, realize what is perfectly normal for what you've been through. Right. But hey, what facts can we pull in right now? So to help this frozen pumpkin realize the fact is her grandpa's back in the hospital. Right. Oh, that is going to bring a lot more shutdown and anxiety and all kinds. Let's figure out what facts you can grab. The fact is he came home today. The fact is he's better. The fact is keep bringing her back to the facts. Same thing with the Escalating Creek kid. I think we just gave him a name.
Escalating Creek.
We name all of our clients.
There it is. Yeah.
And so he has every right to escalate. He's 17 years old, full of testosterone. He's got this war on the screen is the left-right part of the brain. Yeah. He's got the war between logic and emotion going on.
Yeah.
But if we can help him realize that and use the steps to say, the fact is I need to sit up straight, pull my body in. Because the shutdown girl, sitting up straight, even blinking was hard.
Yeah. Because
remember in that last session, we talked a lot about blinking, and it can set off a whole cascade of things if I start blinking and feeling. Yeah. So if she starts feeling her grandpa being sick, then she's going to feel these other things that happened. Wait, we've got tools for doing all that. That's why the clear thinking is so helpful, right?
Those 4 steps. Are we actually helping people like rewire their brain to kind of respond differently to kind of some of the same situations? Is that what's happening?
It's exactly what we're doing. Excellent scene in Inside Out too.
We're back to Inside.
We are back to Inside Out. It's part of my life. So we have these reactions of all these characters. Because it's really what happens in the center of the brain. All these things are happening at once. That's the beauty of that movie. And in the second one, we get anxiety doing her full party. So on the screen, we have this anxiety over there.
Anxiety.
And it's a cousin to Fear over here, right?
Are they cousins?
I like their different hair. He's got one little curled hair, and she's got this red dude.
Cousins.
And there's a beautiful scene in the end where there's this tornado created by anxiety over the control board. No one can get near it because anxiety is winning. Isn't that the way it feels? And then Joy partners up with embarrassment on the screen, the big Oompa Loompa with this big, I just love embarrassment. And then she ventures forth to handle anxiety in the storm. And it's her kindness. It's Joy's kindness, because anxiety is literally frozen in the middle of that storm. Wow. It's just a beautiful scene. And that's what we're doing with clear thinking. We're saying to anxiety, ooh, that storm makes sense, but let's figure out how to get you out of it.
That's so true for so many people in their lives. Just, you feel like you're in a storm, or you feel like you're losing the battle, or you feel like you just can't keep pushing on. And this is where I found clear thinking just to be so strong in my life, just to be able to notice, man, I noticed that my tension is rising. My anxiety is rising. My body is giving me that response, and I feel it in my belly, or I feel it in my shoulders. For me, my palms sweat, or I start to grip my teeth. And then just being able to pause and say, what is the outcome of this picture? And many times we don't like that outcome.
We don't.
It's not the best version of us.
Because our hippocampal system, our memory system is saying, this is how we've done it all the other times, and we're having a battle. So on the screen is that precious inside brain. That hippocampus is saying, this is only gone bad every time.
Yep.
Every single time this has been bad. So then the amygdala says, okay, then crank this up. This is going to be bad. And it's that frontal lobe that says, wait.
Yeah.
I think we can try it this way. With that objective view, that bigger view that says, let's try it.
Yeah.
What the objective view allows and what the kid from the creek learned is he can at one time see what his dad is thinking, what his mom is thinking, and what he's thinking at one time.
At one time.
Not if you're hijacked. It will not work if you're hijacked, right? So that's when he's balanced. He can see his mom's emotional state. She's in the middle, trying to get dad to come down, the boy to come down. And there's this logical thing where dad thinks he's not doing what he should be doing as a kid. That's a logic thing. But with objective thinking and that good breathing and that shifting around, he was able to see the whole dealio.
Yeah.
And that's what's beautiful about clear thinking is we can stop and say, this is where this thing's going to go if I don't get this under control. It's also beautiful because it says, then I can go home from that crazy hot day with those boxes and take care of myself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then it says, like, wait, how could I look at this thing? Let me take the kid out for ice cream because he's been really hot, right?
Yeah.
And so when we tension box on the screen, when we figure out how to break down the boxes and then look at the facts are one of our best acceptance grabbers.
That's it. Look at the facts.
I like that phrase, acceptance grabber.
Yeah.
That's new. You may be hearing more about that. Because then we can tell that frontal lobe we're listening. And here's how this can play out. Doesn't mean it's good, kind, lovely, or true. It might be absolutely horrible. I was just at a family memorial where one of my cousins lost his dearest mom. And we got word at the memorial service that his wife's cancer is not doing well. So how
he's at the memorial service?
Well, he's at the memorial service.
Wow.
The same, like 2 hours. Buries his mom, finds us. How does the mind do that?
That's rough.
And so he did a really good job of pulling some of us in. Let's figure out how to do this. He did a really, really good job. And then just telling some of his mind, and we have the ability to do this. The fact is, I'll think about you in a little while. The fact is, I'm going to think about you right now. It's a form of boxes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And when I get home, I will take care of my precious wife. Wow. But right now, we've got to figure out how to divide everything in the house and take care of all of his siblings and see all the family who came into town. Yes, he did a beautiful job. So we can really do a lot of things in life if we can grab our best thinking, our outcome thinking.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to do the same thing in my life after a bunch of big things and now my husband's health stuff.
Yeah.
And so
how's Russell doing?
A little better all the time. He had some strokes and falls.
Yeah.
And so still stuff I got to kind of fill in behind, right? And I find myself getting real irritated.
Yeah.
When he's not hearing. So the point is, the facts allow us to turn the camera on ourselves and figure out, screen on the brain. This amygdala hijack means that amygdala is pumping us so full of chemicals that we can't do this.
Wow.
And we have to use the other parts of our cortical brain to tell those, remember Inside Out 1 movie, the memory changes color.
Yeah.
That's really,
I remember that.
Yeah, that's actually what we're asking this amygdala to do. Call off the dogs so I can tell that memory system, I can do this. Here's the facts of how I can do this. And then make a new memory, right?
Yeah.
Because remember I told you the last podcast I was with the creek escalating kid and there's fires in our area and I hear the foom, foom, foom of a helicopter.
Right, yeah.
And I had that PTSD moment of when my kid was on the run and the helicopters came to look at. But then I noticed on the other side of the street, there was sirens going by and they weren't setting me off. That has set me off for 10, 15 years and that one didn't.
Wow.
So I was able to say the escalating creek kid, this is fascinating. That part of my brain has healed from the sound of the siren, which was really interesting because I knew my kid was running around those foothills with the sheriffs and the fire trucks. And so...
But could it be that you possibly have heard more sirens?
Could well be.
So you've been able to work on that sound. You don't hear helicopters every day.
Except in our area we do.
Okay.
Because we have all those big orange orchards. So it's a seasonal thing. All fall and winter, if it gets cold, those big fans go off and they sound
like...
Right. We're in our upstairs bedroom with the window open.
You can
sound comes right down the river. It sounds like the helicopter's in the front yard.
Wow.
And it took me about 10 years to not do this in the middle of the night.
Like, I would love that noise to fall asleep to. I love, like, ambient noise to sleep. And just to hear that I would just.
Isn't that interesting?
It'd be great. I would love it.
Different brains, 2 different trauma sets.
Yep. I would love that noise to go to sleep.
Okay, squirrel, on the noise.
On the noise.
So we have noisemakers in our office. Everybody's got a little noisemaker by their door, and people put them on different sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it'll be different water sounds.
Right.
And I'm a little older now, so water kind of sets off different systems in the body. So here I'm going by a creek, and here I'm going by an ocean, and so I've said, "Hey, can it leak?" And then there's a thunderstorm going on from the other one. So I've had to say, "Hey, can we sync our sounds? Just do the little creek sounds, not so much."
That is hilarious.
So we all have different responses. It's a good example to sight and sound, right? That's the amygdala's function, is to pay attention to sight and sound. That's its main job, right? You hear the bear, you see the bear.
Run from the bear.
Run for the bear. So if I can get to the facts in every situation and then actually heal my brain in the process, then it gets to be a beautiful thing that I can be aware. Whoops, this sound makes me think a helicopter. Scale is moving up. But isn't that fascinating? The sirens didn't set me off this time.
Wow.
Which was interesting because I knew my kid was in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, doing well now, but my mind doesn't know that, right? And that's the reminder of why the facts are so important, because sometimes our mind is off on that gerbil wheel. Remember the gerbil wheel? And PTSD can take us off on that gerbil. Yeah, there's the wheel. There he is. Now we just take it.
This squirrel for me. Your son lives right up in the mountains?
Yes.
Are those the same mountains he was running from the police in?
No, he's running for the popo in our neighborhood.
Oh, okay. The popo.
So right on our street.
He moved into the mountains that he was hiding.
No, that was all in our neighborhood, right where I live.
Right where you live.
Back to the safety thing. Mm-hmm. So nothing was safe.
No.
Nothing was safe, right? Mm-hmm. Being in our house wasn't safe.
Yeah. And how long have you been in that neighborhood?
We've been there for 35 years. Wow. This thing happened 15 years ago. But remember, the brain in trauma
doesn't know time.
It doesn't know truth or time. Wow. And that's when it's so hard to access that frontal lobe. And that's why the facts, the kid said, I got to get back to the facts, are so important, because then I can start going through my mantra of the facts to say.
And the facts keep you in the present.
They keep you in the present, even if it's incredibly hard and difficult.
Yeah.
But they keep you in the present.
And that's what's
an old phrase that's going out now, but as most of the old phrases are, keep your wits about you.
Keep your wits about you.
That was saying keep your frontal lobe about you so you can figure out what to do in the middle of a situation, especially when we start getting the big emergencies and all those things, right?
Yep.
And so keep your wits about you. And the other phrase that has a lot to do with this is listen to your gut.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the problems with facts is if my gut's firing off all those adrenals and cortisols, it's really hard to use that frontal lobe.
Yeah.
So it's knowing what our gut's doing, what our brain's doing, and that's why the parasympathetic processing that we talk about is so important. Move your shoulders, sit up straight. So in the book that I wrote called Brain Prayers, there's a page in the new one. There's the old one that was really 30 pages, and this is the new one. Thank you, Phil, for the cover. And so the frontal lobe is really talking about the Mack truck in the mirror, which I like this phrase. It's a quote. The frontal and prefrontal areas work together to solve the problems. Like what to do when a truck appears in your rearview mirror going 20 miles an hour faster than you are. You've had that on the freeway.
Yeah.
Fear and logical thinking work together to get out of the way in time, right? Yeah. So first you have the fear reaction, the Mack truck's coming, and it's that frontal lobe, I love this heading, the front desk of fantastic deliberations.
Yeah.
So the reason I wrote the Brain Prayers book is because then you can pray for yourself about your frontal lobes. As my frontal lobes help evaluate what I see with my eyes, may I clearly see you at work, right? That's frontal occipital. And then on the other side is a prayer you can pray for someone else that you know is having trouble. Allow them to be aware of their habits of thinking that keep them in cycles of decision-making that are so harmful to themselves and others around them. So we can actually pray for people's frontal lobes. If we believe in healing, right, which we do.
We do.
So
where can we find
Brain
that?
Prayers?
Where can we find that book?
It's on Amazon. Yay, both of them.
Both of them.
I wrote this one thinking that I was going to ditch the other one because it's so complex. And then somebody says, no, I want the complex one for these people, and I want the simpler one for them.
Yeah.
And it's a brighter, lighter one. I designed this one so you could write on the pages.
Oh, you can write in the book.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, brain prayers. That's a great place to learn more about your brain.
I love it. And right here on our podcast, you can learn so much about your brain. Again, we just want to thank everybody for tuning in to our episode, the Brain Lady Podcast. You can tune in on YouTube, Instagram, all your favorite places that you like to subscribe to. Don't forget, share our podcast, like and subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode. Wood, this was a good one.
Thank you, everybody. Don't forget to move your shoulders and sit up straight. Grab an exhale.